with us as we stay on this topic. Now we move on to our next news. The Kremlin has expressed heightened concern over Western weapon supplies to Ukraine, emphasizing that it is actively monitoring the situation. Dmitry Peskov, a Kremlin spokesperson, stated that these supplies are primarily a business transaction, with some European countries expected to foot the bill. He also noted that while there are no immediate plans for a phone call between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump, such a conversation could be arranged swiftly if needed. The issue of arms shipments to Ukraine remains a central point in ongoing tensions between Russia and the West. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical expert. Thank you, Mark, for staying with us. How does the Kremlin's framing of Western weapon supplies to Ukraine as primarily a business transaction reflect Russia's stance on international involvement in this conflict?
Well, I've just said it earlier. They are concerned about more and more weapons going into the theater of war, on both sides, no matter how people dress that up. If we then, as it's saying, that the American administration wants to give Kiev certain weapons, Trump is also looking for a deal to say, right, I'm going to park these missiles within the Ukrainian theater of war with Russia. Now, Vladimir, will you please come to the table? The brinkmanship will go so far and so far and so far. The concern is within the brinkmanship that you then press the button and intercontinental, a sort of a potential nuclear exchange could then happen. You know that, I mean, that is the kind of situation that we could be looking at, that we want to avoid. To actually turn around and say, yeah, other people would say certain things in regard to maybe a business transaction. The problem is, in this situation on both sides, the amount of people that have been killed, this could have been negotiated to end a long time ago. It's then, for some reason, it suited people to then keep expanding that. As I was explaining, I think yesterday on the channel, that we have to go back in history. We end up going back to the coup in 2014 in regard to the Ukraine. We then go back to the Minsk agreement. We go back to promising Russia, when the wall came down in 1989, that NATO would not expand up to its border. There are so many different factors to understand, to realize that if you keep, this is my opinion, others would of course disagree, but if you keep poking the bear, then this is what you then get. And then other people turn around and say, well, Vladimir wishes to, remember, Kyiv was the traditional Russian capital, and turn around and say, well, the Russian would like their empire back and like to expand. I don't necessarily agree with that. If we go back to what was happening in the Crimea and the Donbass and on that border, they are Russian speaking, and it's how they were then treated, and a number of years ago told, we don't want you to speak Russia anymore. All of these tensions are built up to this situation, and it's not a video game like in any area around the world. There is deep complexities that we have to try and understand. This is not a video game. We don't press a button and, we can just wipe the screen and start the game again. No, people are getting killed by their thousands in this situation.
Thank you very much, Mark.